Putin bad news. Is there a better option for Russia than Putin? In today's Wall Street Journal, chess grandmaster and Renew Democracy Initiative chairman and Russia Action Committee co-founder Garry Kasparov writes a scathing op-ed titled, "Ukrainians Die as America Dawdles." It's possible the Biden administration will argue that they've found the Goldilocks zone where some Americans think they're sending too much aid to Ukraine too quickly while others think they're sending too little aid to Ukraine too slowly. It's more likely that the U.S. is running low on some key weapon systems, particularly long-range missiles, and Ukraine is constantly forced to improvise and make do with fewer weapons than they need due to the sporadic decision-making and slow, start-and-stop process of sending arms. The Center for Strategic and International Studies estimates that it will take 4 years to replenish at least one category of 155 mm shells, 5.5 years to replenish the Javelin anti-tank missile stockpile, and 6.5 years to replenish the Stinger air defense missile stockpile, all at the surge or prioritized production rate. There never seems to be enough weapons or ammunition for Ukraine to really turn the tide, but they have enough to hold their own. Biden's statement that, "We will stand with Ukraine as long as it takes," is meaningless blather unless it is accompanied by a more detailed explanation of what it means to stand with Ukraine. Kasparov is entirely correct. However, Kasparov makes other claims that may be questioned by his American readers. Escalation is something Mr. Putin very much fears. While a nuclear arsenal in the hands of a KGB thug waging genocidal war in Europe is a serious threat, the United States and NATO act as if the collapse of his illegitimate regime, or what's left of Russia itself, would be worse. Any other person would do better. I'll be the first to admit that, better than Vladimir Putin, is an absurdly low standard. But can we be sure that any other Russian leader would be better than Putin? How different would Putin loyalists like Secretary of the Security Council Nikolai Patrushev, Chief of the Security Service Alexander Bortnikov, and Head of Foreign Intelligence Sergei Naryshkin make policy and decision-making? Extreme nationalists claim Russia's approach to the situation in Ukraine lacks brutality and aggression. Radio Free Europe made a point a few years ago of noting how Vladimir Zhirinovsky, a Russian firebrand politician, had become much more mainstream in Russian culture despite his crackpot, bellicose, and often offensive statements. It appears that Yevgeny Prigozhin is just as much a thug and a lunatic as Putin. Given this, wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that Putin's successor will pose similar challenges? This is not an argument for the United States to do anything to keep Putin in power. Rather, it is a sobering reminder that the unknown devil may be even more dangerous than the known one. We would welcome a less adversarial, less reckless, and less abusive regime in Moscow, which is what we mean by regime change, or fundamental changes in Russia's government. However, this does not necessitate that our elected officials publicly call for leadership changes in Russia. The reason why Biden's staff rushed to insist he didn't mean what he said when he ad-libbed, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power," is because of this very thing. Second, while I recently wrote that we probably, emphasis added, don't have to worry about Russian nuclear weapons getting stolen or sold based on the past 30 years. That presupposes the existence of a unified Russian state and military in charge of those arms. There would be a great deal more uncertainty if Putin's regime fell. According to NBC News, in April, an unofficial American peace delegation met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in New York to discuss potential terms for a ceasefire in Ukraine. According to Noah Rothman, this contradicts statements by Vice President Joe Biden such as, "We are not going to engage in any negotiation," and, "There's nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine." When it suits him, Vice President Biden makes grand and audacious promises, but he quickly forgets or ignores them. Kasparov has many valid points of contention with Biden's handling of Ukraine aid. The president you have is the president you go to war with, not the president you might want.